Hello again. Erica, can you see my screen?
I can.
Awesome. Oh shoot, I closed the wrong one.
Are you going tomorrow, Faye?
Yeah. But I am considered
Yeah.
What am I called? An evaluator. So I'm not allowed to do anything. I'm not allowed to talk to anyone. I just am going to be standing there basically with a clipboard watching.
Sure.
You know me, I'm sure I'll be chit-chatting as well, but
Well, my youngest had her wisdom teeth out today. She's a little miserable. So I was like, shoot, I'm like nervous to leave her tomorrow.
I
But
wouldn't be too worried if you end up not making it.
well, I want to be there, but I'm like, I just feel bad. Like I feel my husband's still out of town on fire. So like she would be literally by herself all day.
Family first.
Well, I know, but I want to be there because I don't know that Leslie wants to go by herself.
No, but
Like,
she won't be there by herself. And I think we're gonna have other volunteers from Incline show up to do the
okay.
sheltering part.
I'll kind of like let you know tonight, like, depending
Okay.
on like if she feels good or if, someone can come hang with her for a little bit. Cause yeah, she's pretty miserable.
That is no fun. Hi, Anne.
Oh,
How are you?
Sherry, I can't see
Nice
your
to
face
see
yet,
you.
but I'm hoping I can actually, you can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay, that's interesting. Let me see what's going on. I can see the agenda.
Yep, I'm sharing my screen, and here we go. I'll turn my camera on. Can you see me now?
Oh, now I can see you. Yeah.
Sorry,
Thank
I
you so
forgot to
much.
turn it on.
Yeah, I can probably turn my microphone off, but nice to see you. Nice to meet you.
Yes, I'm so glad to have you here. How have
Yeah,
things been going? Did you do your great big family tour?
yes, I've sort of been in and out. So, I was out of the country for a while, and then I was also out of the country a lot of this summer too.
Oh, goodness.
I'm glad to be back.
Well, we're glad to have you back. Let me know when you're ready to go to Hawaii. Wink, wink.
Well, one of the reasons I really appreciate all the communication that I've received, and I'm curious to know about what's going on with Hawaii and how, if they're actually letting, I know in Hawaii they have a pretty good American Red Cross volunteer force there, and I'm just curious to know if they're actually letting volunteers in yet from other parts
Oh,
of the
yeah.
United States.
Yeah, and especially DMH is a huge need, as you can only imagine, with all the fatalities.
And so, that was one of my specialties all those years in San Diego, was mass casualties. And so I remember with Hurricane Katrina, I actually spent almost 3 months in San Diego with so many people moving from New Orleans to San Diego that we had set up a service center for almost 3 months. And there was a huge mental health need with that mass casualty. So I'm curious to hear what's happening in Hawaii right now.
Well, we're going to talk about that as part of the meeting
Yes,
today.
yes.
But you specifically, I was glad to see you join the meeting because of the one, your level of experience, and two, the immense need for your particular skill set with all that's going on in this. Yeah, and we'll, like I said, we'll go into it further, but maybe you and I have a separate conversation
Okay, sure. Thank you.
offline too.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. So a small but mighty group is on with us today. I need to let everyone know, and I should have let Ian and Erica know right when they jumped on, that I already started the recording of the meeting, because as you can see, it's very top at my agenda. Don't forget to record the meeting, and I usually do. So this is to everyone. We are recording the meeting. Thank you for attending. It's our weekly Northern Nevada Volunteer Opportunities meeting where we talk about what's happening in our chapter and opportunities that are available and things that we just did this past week. So we'll get going. I want to welcome everyone. Thank you. I'm back from Vermont. We probably have a pretty small attendance because not everyone realizes I'm back yet. I am going to be sending this recording along with the recording of our preparedness meeting out with an email to all of our volunteers so they can see this recording and also know about all of the updates. There's a lot happening in our chapter, but also just in Red Cross in general right now. The very first, most important information that everyone needs to be aware of is that there is a new intranet launching on August 30th. And what that means is the exchange is going away. Does everyone on the call right now know what I'm referring to when I say the exchange? Okay, it's like our big database, right? It's where we go to find everything. You'll hear people say, where do I find this? And you'll hear someone respond, on the exchange. It's pretty much where all of the Red Cross guidance lives, especially guidance from National. So all of our concept of operations, all of our toolkits, all of our everything lives on the exchange. And it's now going to look like this. It's going to be called Red Cross Internet One Source, because it's going to be that one source we go to for almost everything. So it's going to be confusing for probably a year or so, because we're going to have people referring to it as the exchange and people referring to it as one source. Just know that when anybody says the exchange or they say one source, this is what they're talking about. And I can't really show it to you yet because it's coming out on August 30th. At the meeting following its rollout, we'll do an overview. We'll go through it, look at the common places you'll need to go, how to search through it, because it's going to be a new learning experience for all of us. Hopefully, it's going to be simpler than the exchange. What they're telling us is that it brings us one-click access to various resources, portals, and platforms that we use every day. That sounds awesome. Maybe it's going to be also a place where we can go to get to our other tools and portals, but we'll see how that looks. It's going to be one concise view of key happenings that includes upcoming trainings and resource group events. So again, we'll have to see if that means if we're going to be able to feature local trainings or if that's just nationally focused stuff. And then it's also going to have Red Cross news and other information to help us know and do more. So I'm pretty excited about it. I've heard this in the whispers of the coffers for a year and a half. I was told last year at the national meeting, the exchange is going away from the man on top. And I've been waiting. What is it going to look like? What is it going to mean for us? And this is it. It's this new one source. So yeah, after more than 10 years, it's time to say goodbye to the exchange. So I'm really excited about this. I hope it's much simpler to use than the exchange was and simpler to find things. Because if you guys have experienced the exchange, unless you know the exact name of a document or what you're looking for, it brings up a bazillion results. And a lot of those results don't have anything to do with us because it is the one source for all Red Cross, meaning all lines of service. Biomed stuff is in there, so blood services stuff, Our service to the armed forces stuff is in there. Our training services materials may or may not be in there. I'm not sure. I've not ever looked for those. So it's been kind of a big mismatch of stuff. And I'm hoping this will be a new tool that will make it simpler for all of us. So more to come on that. The main reason I wanted to bring it up on this meeting is August 30th is only 2 weeks away. I don't want you guys to go to the exchange on August 30th and be like, what the heck? What happened? Where is everything? It's going to go away, and OneSource is that new spot for all those details. Any questions that I may or may not be able to answer at this point about OneSource? I'm going to put in our notes OneSource right here. Perfect. All right. Well, let's move on then. We're going to talk about the events that we attended last week. So nothing sponsored by Northern Nevada, but this is just worth a huge, huge shout out to Betsy Morse, who is not on this call, but is living the mission in Israel right now. She went to Israel with another group serving their mission, but while she was there, because she's always living the Red Cross mission, she did hands-only CPR. She gave hands-only CPR to 28 students, to teenagers, and they in turn, some of them, trained their adults, their parents, 100 people. So in all, because of Betsy Morse's efforts across the world, live in the Red Cross mission and representing us so amazingly well, 128 people in Israel now know hands-only CPR and are ready to help support saving a life if needed, if someone drops in front of them. So huge kudos to Betsy, thank you. And all of you volunteers who want to let me know about other things, other ways you're living the mission just in your day-to-day life, I'd love to give you a shout out about it and let our other volunteers know. I try and live the Red Cross mission wherever I go because it's to serve those in need. And that's why we're all volunteers. So awesome, awesome work. On the 10th, last Thursday, Al Wagner was out in one of our Duke communities in Fallon, and he attended a career fair that was primarily high school students. Over 1,300 people attended, which is huge. I'm just in shock that they were able to get 1,300 people from Fallon together out in one place. Huge kudos to Al. He's been doing tremendous work in Fallon, helping them be more prepared for disaster as a community, working with their government emergency managers, working with the senior center and other community partners to make sure we do outreach to as many of those with access and functional needs as possible. And then our youth. He's had such a tremendous impact and is always willing to put on a penguin costume for our Prepare with Pedro penguins for our little ones. So he does it all, meeting from the very top officials in Fallon and in Churchill County to entertaining our 5-year-old to first grade students in Prepare with Pedro. So kudos to Al and thank you for always representing us out there. On Saturday, I was able to attend a resource fair in Lovelock. It was the first one they had, but they're going to do it every 2 years going forward because it was such a successful event. They had 20 to 30 partner organizations out there with tables, all focused on preparing the Lovelock community and Pershing County in disaster preparedness. I was there working with the emergency manager from Pershing County, and we were able to set up more future outreach opportunities with the Masons there, who have a decent presence in Winnemucca and Lovelock, and also may be able to support any disaster efforts should we need them going forward. And they also have facilities, which are also something that we're in dire need of when disasters happen in areas, especially those more rural communities. So Great opportunity to network and connect out in Lovelock. 63 people stopped by my table and learned how to prepare their families to be more prepared for disaster. So huge win out in Lovelock. Upcoming events. We have tomorrow an Incline Village evacuation exercise and preparedness fair. So they are evacuating part of Incline Village tomorrow as an exercise. I cannot give away too many details because that would take away from the exercise component. But we will be there as we would be if there was an evacuation to support those mass care needs. Erica Smith and Leslie Hall are going to be there at our preparedness table at the fair. Anyone and everyone is welcome. So if you feel like joining in the fun, we're meeting at the office at 7:30 to carpool. Jim Rich is driving the ERV, but we also have the cruise reserved. So there's plenty of seats available for anybody who wants to go. If you're already up in Incline or in the Lake Tahoe area, we'll be meeting at 8:30 at the Recreation Center in Incline Village. So everyone is welcome for that as well. If you live in the Incline area, you may be getting a call out to say, hey, are you available to open up a shelter for an exercise? Because that's what we would do in a real event. So that's the only heads up I'm giving. But it should be a cool event and a great opportunity for us to exercise our skills in a really, really wildfire prone area. Could happen at any time. Hopefully a little bit later this year, though, with all the snow that fell. That's all we have so far for the rest of August. July and August are typically our slower months because a lot of people are on vacation and school is out. A lot of organizations take a break from meetings. So typically we're not going to see as many events in July and August as we do going forward. In September and October, I expect to get busier. So coming up in September, I don't have the details yet because we were just invited today, but we're invited to a United Airlines safety fair. And this might be one that you might really enjoy because when we respond to airport or airlines, it's usually because of a transportation accident that oftentimes involves us setting up a family resource center because typically in transportation accidents, we see fatalities and we see the need for reunification. And then all of the disaster mental health support that's needed to support those individuals. So it might be a cool one for you to check out. We'll share the details out at the next meeting once I know more about it, but I'm guessing it's going to be at the Reno Tahoe International Airport. On September 11th and September 13th, we are doing our Prepare with Pedro presentations and our Pillowcase Project presentations to the youth in Lockwood and Virginia City at their elementary schools. We have presenters already arranged, but anyone is always welcome to support our preparedness team in their efforts. So you can help support the presentation by passing out the materials or just in general being there to support them in whatever they might need at the presentation. There's also an opportunity, not at these two because Al already put his hand up, but for future presentations, we have a Pedro costume. So if you have fun getting dressed up and you want to get hugs from a bunch of elementary school kids, let me know. And you too can be a penguin and represent as Prepare with Pedro. So those are our upcoming events. We do have another one already on October 7th that I'm actually going to add right now. And it is at the Komatsu Family Safety Night. And I'm pretty sure that's going to be in Reno. And we still need more details about what we are going to do, but we're probably going to do one or more of our preparedness presentations to help support at the Komatsu family become more disaster prepared and prepare their families for safety. Here's the big time for me to ask and let you guys know really what our big needs are in the chapter. Not disaster related, but more steady state needs. We're starting a new project, I'll call it, maybe initiative. It's I'm calling it Home Fire Campaign Targeted Outreach at this point. We might rename it, but we're putting a work group together. While we were out in Sun Valley doing our preparedness fair, Jean Held had a remarkable idea to do targeted outreach by hanging door hangers about our home fire campaign, which is installing smoke alarms and bed shaker smoke alarms to anybody who calls and requests them from us. But hanging door hangers in the neighborhoods where we've recently responded to disaster action team calls. While those fires are fresh in that neighborhood's mind, it would be great if we could get out there, door hang, and have them call us to request smoke detectors be installed or tested if they need them. It's something that I thought was a brilliant idea. We just need to get a work group together and get it organized. Right now, we have about 5 individuals, but we really need kind of people throughout our chapter who want to help participate. So if that's of interest to you, you'd like to be part of that work group, please email me or text me or give me a phone call, and I'll be sure you're added to the invitation for that work group. The first meeting I'm going to try and organize for next week, probably towards the end of next week. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay. The other thing that we're needing regular help with, not a huge time commitment, but each month we just need to get together and do a quick cleanup of our warehouse, put away anything that may have been used and just left out throughout the month, things that may need to be restocked. We need to do an inventory of our preparedness materials. So if we have a team of 3 or 4 people, I'm thinking it's going to be a commitment of about an hour each month, maybe 2 hours. So if you're interested in being part of that team, needs to be towards the end of the month, but doesn't have to necessarily be the last day of the month for our inventory. But let me know. Again, shoot me an email, text, phone call. Let me know if you're interested in being part of that team.
Sherry, where's the warehouse?
Oh, it's in the back of our office, and I call it a warehouse. It's basically a little garage space. So it's not a huge area, but here's what happens, Ann. Like tomorrow, we're having that exercise, right? So we loaded up the herb with a bunch of stuff. We're going to bring back the herb. We'll probably put it away, but sometimes you get back from events and it's just late and everyone's tired and they just end up unloading and leaving it in the warehouse. So sometimes things are left out and just need to be put away. We always need to do a preparedness materials inventory. So each month we go out and we give our presentations, and each week we go out twice a week and we install smoke alarms. And so we just need to keep a running inventory of those smoke alarms and all of the supplies they use. One, to make sure we restock anything that they need so that they don't have to come and find, oh, I don't have what I need. And also it's numbers that I have to report up to Ashley, who runs our preparedness program. So she has kind of visibility at our region level, what we have on hand. That way, if another chapter in our region is running low, we can transfer stuff as opposed to buying more.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions on the warehouse monthly cleanup and inventory? Okay. The other thing that our chapter really loves to do, and I love to do it too, is have potlucks. We love to get together and have meetings and break bread together. as one might say. It can be gluten-free bread if needed, but it's a time for us to connect socially. But I've been struggling, you guys, with having the time to put that together. And it's not that I don't want us to have get-togethers. I want us to have get-togethers more than anything, but I need help organizing it and putting those together. So I'm asking for a couple, as many volunteers really as we want, to be our meeting and potluck organizers. And it's one for a monthly get-together for all of our volunteers. And that's not just disaster cycle services, but I'd like to invite all of our Northern Nevada volunteers to participate, especially right now. Mary Powell moved on. She's still with the Red Cross, but she's no longer our executive director. And so I don't want those volunteers that are not part of disaster cycle services to not be engaged or invited. So I would love to have, a monthly potluck get together for all of our Northern Nevada volunteers, but definitely need help organizing that. Erica Smith, you have your hand up.
I muted myself again. So the mission committee wants to do this. They want to start barbecues every month. So I believe that they want to do one for September, kind of playing it by ear because if everybody's leaving, to deploy or whatever. But that is definitely something the mission committee wants to do for everybody, not just for, one department. We want everybody to get together. So just so you know.
So I would say anybody who's interested in helping with that, let me know and I will let the mission committee know because I'm sure that they would love to have volunteer support with that. But great, I'm so glad that they're talking about it and it's being taken care of anyway. Erica,
yes, ma'am. That was important to me because I don't know a lot of the volunteers, so I want to know people too.
With that, and you can say, I don't know the answer to this, or maybe you can find the right person, but it'd be awesome if somebody from the mission committee could give a report out at this meeting. Maybe not every week, but maybe how often does the mission committee meet?
We meet the first Tuesday of every month. So once a month.
Just for all of us, our awareness, will you tell us what the mission committee is and what they do and what they focus on?
Yeah, the mission committee is just centered around our chapter. So this is our local chapter mission committee, and it is literally formed to spread our mission. That's what we want to do. We want to get out in the community. How can we get out there? How can we get our community and mission out to everybody in Northern Nevada? So they are really focused on anything community related.
And so when you guys are at the meeting, like, how do you guys start your discussion? Do you just be like, well, how does it kind of, how do you pick the things that you pick to focus on or?
So with the mission committee, we kind of, Mary's not with us anymore, or still at the Red Cross, but not as our ED anymore. So we have a new board as well. So we are literally just starting over, getting everything going again. We're coming up with a calendar, monthly calendar on kind of the things that we can look forward to. Like volunteer week and all of those things that we can have a calendar and be ready for that. So we start our meeting by talking about, what's coming up, what we need to do, what can we get involved in, where can they help? They are definitely always on board to help, but they need to know what we need help with. Otherwise they can't help.
Yeah, and that would be another awesome reason to have maybe someone from the mission committee like join us at this meeting, maybe just the meeting following the first Tuesday of each month.
Yeah, that would be great. And I can always give the report out on that too if they can't, because most of them are they have outside jobs. So
okay. And can any volunteer be on the mission committee? How does that work if someone wants to be part of the mission committee?
Yes, any volunteer can be involved. Right now we have one volunteer that helps us write cards to all of our volunteers. So if you have an anniversary or anything coming up, especially your Red Cross anniversary, we, send a thank you card out to you. Thanks for your, commitment to us. It's important. So they're really involved with that. But, the barbecues are a big thing that they really want to do. The breakfasts, our pancake breakfast. I miss those, just getting everybody back in the chapter is what they're looking to do.
Awesome. And that's exactly why I put it on here as one of our team members needed, but I'm super stoked that the mission committee is leading that effort. Yeah, and looking forward to hearing more. And if I have any people who call me or text me or email me and let me know that they're interested in being on that committee or being just part of organizing the potlucks, helping with that, is it good if I let you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And like I said, we are trying we want the first one to be in September. But we're kind of playing that by ear now with Maui. We're not quite sure. I mean, if people are having to deploy, then we're not quite sure how it's going to work out, but we will definitely get them on the calendar.
Okay, very cool. Does anyone have any questions about that? About our mission committee or about future chapter potlucks, barbecues, get-togethers? All right. The other monthly meeting that we have is our monthly, and this should actually say disaster action team meeting that Jim Rich hosts. And he would still be leading that meeting, but this is just more someone who's willing to help him organize it, find someone to host it when he's not around, or maybe host it in his absence when he's gone. He'll be going to Uganda soon, and he'll be gone for an extended period. So just looking for someone to help support that meeting. Like I said, you don't have to be a master of disaster action team. We would help you with the content. It's just mainly more getting it organized, sending out the invitation, getting it on the calendar, organizing the room, snacks, that type of stuff. So if you're interested in that, again, reach out to me by phone, text, or email, and we'll get you connected. The other opportunity that we have a great need for always is volunteers who want to be duty officers. So for those of you who don't know what a duty officer does, a duty officer is the person who gets that first dispatch from our national call center when an agency or a person calls 1-800 Red Cross seeking assistance. Normally, it's for single-family fires in our area, but it could be for floods. It could be for trees falling on houses. Anything that displaces a person from their house, we may get a call about. Right now, our call center is getting a ton of calls in the thousands per day for people looking for loved ones in Hawaii. Either people that were on vacation there or people that live there. And we can see all of the calls that come in from Northern Nevada, even though they're seeking help about the Hawaii response. Our duty officers do not answer those calls. Our duty officers only answer the calls that are in regards to responses we can manage in Northern Nevada. So they're going to be a house fire in Reno or a manufactured home fire at Silver Springs or an event incident out in Elko, not anything outside of our area. And the cool thing about being a duty officer is you can do it really from anywhere you have an internet connection. Can be done virtually. And there's a ton of training and support available. So it's not one of those positions where you're going to sign up for and then you're just going to go out and do it and hope you're doing it right. It's a position where you train up for, then you have an opportunity to shadow me or another duty officer via Teams, go through the whole process of how it works. And you don't have to commit to signing up for a shift until you feel confident and ready. So a lot of support there, but it's something, a position we always need more volunteers to fill. There's 2 duty officer shifts each day. They're 12-hour commitments. They go from 5:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. I cover at least 5 shifts a month. I have never received more than 3 calls in one shift. Now, that's not to say it can't happen. I think the record is 12 calls in one shift, which is a lot. Sometimes I don't get any calls. So I'll oftentimes work the 5:30 to 5:30 a.m. shift and sleep through the night without interruption. Sometimes I'm working 2 or 3 calls. So it just depends. But it is an opportunity out there that's available for anyone who wants to train up and do it, and have regularly support our disaster action teams out in the field. Does anyone have any questions about being a duty officer, what that looks like? Okay. Well, if you're interested in checking it out, call, text, or email me, and we'll work it out. The other positions that we're always looking to fill are for our shelter strike teams. And you're like, what is a shelter strike team? A shelter strike team are individuals that we identify to be on call to open up a shelter if needed. So we probably would have on a shelter strike team someone who is trained up in government operations, someone who's trained up to be a shelter manager, someone who's trained to be a shelter supervisor, someone who would be our feeding manager or feeding lead, and someone who would be handling our logistics or supplies. Those are kind of the top 5 things we need right away to get a shelter open and start serving people immediately. So we're looking to build those teams. And again, this is going to be similar to our efforts with the door hangers. It's going to be throughout our chapter. So we're going to have multiple strike teams. It's not going to just be one, but we'll probably have regular work group meetings where we all meet together and talk about our efforts and how we want to quickly open a shelter, the things that we need, how that would look, and more importantly, practice. So it'll involve exercising, opening shelters, and practicing what that will look like in our area and using facilities that we have identified that we would use as shelters should we need one. There will be more information coming on that. And Jocelyn Seaman, previous DPM in Northern Nevada, will be leading a lot of those efforts. As direct services lead for our region, that's kind of what she's in charge of, is making sure that our region and our chapters are ready for response or delivering direct services to clients. Any questions about shelter strike teams? Okay, hearing none, again, let me know if you're interested. The other big need that we have, partially because Mary Powell did such an amazing job representing us in the media, is we need a media star or stars who really want to give those interviews to our local media news stations or our newspapers, any outlets really, about what Red Cross is up to. I gave an interview just before I went to Vermont about the Vermont floods and what was happening and what Red Cross would do there. We have pretty quiet news market here in Northern Nevada, thankfully. We don't have a ton of crimes. We don't have a ton of murders, crazy stuff happening. So we actually get quite a bit of face time in our media in Northern Nevada, and we have really good relationships. But they love talking to volunteers, and I love them talking to volunteers. So if you are a media star or know other volunteers who might want to be media stars, there's training available through Keith Paul, who handles our public affairs and external relations communications. he can give training, if you would like, on how to give better interviews and key things to say and how to do things correctly and things to avoid. But yeah, we're looking for those volunteers, especially if you live pretty close to the office or you're willing to come to the office. That's usually where they will meet us to do the interviews. So any questions about that or any interest from the folks online? Okay, hearing none, if you're just shy right now, which may not be the best thing for a media star, give me a call or text or email me and we'll connect you and get you the training that you want. Or if you're ready to rock and roll and start giving interviews now, awesome. I'd love it. That is, we always have other needs. And if you are interested in doing anything at any time and you have more time to dedicate to the mission, let me know and I'll put you to work. But these are kind of the top 6 items that we need to focus on right now. Moving on, deployment opportunities. A lot of you have questions about Hawaii, understandably. To this point, we are deploying people to Hawaii, but it's really only volunteers at manager and supervisor level, some service associates, but everyone has to have previous experience. They're not letting anyone go who does not have previous experience because of the nature of this disaster. It's a huge disaster, first of all. It's a level 7, billions of dollars. If you guys don't know what I mean when I say level 7, we have all levels of disaster that we respond to. A level 1 would be like a single family house fire. Very few clients impacted, very minimal expense as far as services. It goes up to a level 7, which is the largest scale disaster. I think the dollar figure is anything over 100 million, but typically it's these large disasters that are expected to cost into the billions, and several lives have been impacted. A lot of times people have died. So there's a lot of times fatalities and a lot of missing people, as is the case right now in Hawaii. And that's why they're limiting it right now to experienced volunteers only. I expect that will change in about a month or 2. It's going to be a long operation. We're probably going to be supporting sheltering, we'll say mass care activities for probably 3 months. Regardless if they decide to do some non-congregate sheltering or keep it all as congregate sheltering. Right now, it's all staff shelters, or most of the volunteers and staff that are there are staying in staff shelters. So it's not easy living conditions for anyone, for the workforce or for any of the clients who've been impacted. A couple of days ago, clients in workforce were sheltering in similar locations, which that usually does not occur either. So there's a lot of moving parts right now in Hawaii and a lot of things to be figured out. That being said, if you have experience and you have time available, please go and support. There's a lot of need right now, especially when it comes to disaster mental health services and reunification. A lot of people missing their loved ones. So I'm going to share really quickly with you a recent email that came from Brad Kaiserman. If you guys don't know who Brad Kaiserman is, he is the Vice President of Disaster Response, I believe is his title. This is a disaster operations order that was sent out via leadership today. So I'm just going to read through it really quickly. it gives the most up-to-date information that I have. This was as 11 p.m. Eastern time, I guess. But the time zone used throughout the order is Hawaii Aleutian Standard Time unless specified. So the situation is wind-driven wildfires in the town of Lahaina, Hawaii began on August 8th, prompting evacuations, causing widespread catastrophic residential and infrastructure damage and killing at least 93 people. We know now that's at least 99, making it the deadliest fire in U.S. history since 1918. On August 10, 2023, the president issued a federal major disaster declaration. Preliminary damage estimates indicate the fire destroyed about 2,000 residential structures, making the town of Lahaina effectively uninhabitable. Additionally, the National Significant Wildland Fire Potential Outlook issued on August 21st, 2023. So this is an attachment that I can share with you guys later. But it places the entire state of Hawaii at above average wildfire risk through at least November. And the most recent forecast from NOAA's Central Pacific Hurricane Center calls for a 50% chance of above normal tropical cyclone activity this season. Accordingly, we must maintain an immediate readiness posture to initiate additional response operations in Hawaii. So one of the reasons why this fire was driven so quickly and encompassed that town so rapidly was because of hurricane force winds. The hurricane didn't directly hit Hawaii, but there was one several miles off. So they didn't get the precipitation from the hurricane, but they got the winds that drove that fire incredibly fast. And forecast is saying that potential is strong through November of this year. That's incredible for island communities because they only have so many places to go to. So again, if you're available, please consider supporting. The commander's intent, the Red Cross provides compassionate, thoughtful, and equitable care for individuals and families who cannot go home after a disaster. Equitable means we serve all clients according to their needs, advocating for and empowering their agency to respond and recover. We translate equity into operational outcomes by rapidly learning, understanding, and mapping the conditions and needs to affected communities and prioritizing service delivery to those most negatively impacted, and reducing the duration of shelter stays through timely, empathetic, and data-driven casework that provides our clients with access to the most capable resources and partners needed to overcome their most challenging recovery barriers. 3, improving conditions for those who are displaced and help those who can safely remain in their homes to do so. And 4, preventing our most vulnerable displaced clients from falling into deeper into poverty through excellent casework and excellent SRT follow-up casework after clients leave our shelters. So SRT, for those of you who are not familiar with that acronym, it means Shelter Resident Transition Team. This team of individuals are vital in identifying barriers that prevent people from moving forward in their recovery process, specifically when it comes to sheltering. So what that might look like in a real world example is we have someone who's staying at a shelter. They have a relative, and I'm going to use Hawaii as an example. They have a relative on another island that they can stay with, but they don't have the money for the flight to get to that other island. Red Cross will work with partners to try and find either a partner to provide that transportation or financial resources so that person can purchase a ticket to go and stay with that family member, because they would be better served at that family member's home than at our shelter. So the shelter resident transition team, they meet with those clients in the shelter, get to know them really well, and understand their personal barriers to moving forward and help eliminate those barriers through partnerships. Does anyone have any questions about SRT before I move forward with the intent? Okay. So the intent of our workforce is that they feel respected and valued, they conduct meaningful service delivery, and they make a positive impact on the lives of our clients. The intent for our clients is our clients receive compassionate and thoughtful care from every Red Cross worker. The intent for our partners is that, one, they understand what we do, they appreciate our value, and they welcome us to our table. And I would say we do all those things in reverse as well, right? It's important that we understand what they do, we appreciate their value, and we also understand what they bring to the table. So that one goes both ways. I'm adding to Brad's intent. Don't tell him. The intent for the Red Cross, oh, here it is, that we understand what our partners do, appreciate their value. So I didn't add to it, actually. I just didn't read ahead. The task for our organization is the Vice President of Disaster Operations and Logistics. That's Brad, who created this document. He's established a level 7 national disaster relief operation. Like we talked about, that's the largest disaster relief operation there is. The disaster relief operation number is 462-24. That means it's the 462nd disaster response operation in the fiscal year 2024 to lead and manage Red Cross response to the current Maui wildfires in accordance with the approved service delivery plan and the transition of operational command from the Pacific Islands region to the national operation. So what that means, you guys, is a service delivery plan is created by the disaster relief operation 462-24 leadership. And what that service delivery plan includes is all of the estimated costs of what we want to deliver and when we expect to deliver them and an estimated time of when we expect those services to end. In an operation like this, the service delivery plan will be revised probably every couple of weeks, if not weekly, as different needs are identified and plans change. But right now, they've based this level 7 disaster on the assumption of the service delivery plan and how much it's going to cost to deliver all those services. Anyone have any question about that before I go on? The transition is talked about because the transition from a region to national operations happens after at a level 5 disaster. Anything level 5 and above is a national response. Operational authorities and responsibilities will be in accordance with the disaster cycle service concept of operation. Disaster cycle services operations and logistics will resource and coordinate all operations through the DOC. This is the Disaster Operation Control Center. So when you see DOC, that means it's the people in charge. All of the operations are managed through the DOC. The National Command Table of Organization is available for your review. The table of organization for a level 7 is huge, gives all of the workforce, the leadership, and all of the workforce that falls under their leadership. So if you guys have any desire to see that or any of the things that are referenced in here, let me know. I know I'm going into a lot of detail, but before I shared this out with the group, I wanted you to have an understanding of what this document is. The mission is to initiate unified response operations on Maui with 2 distinct lines of effort. First is mass care, and the second is in regard to mass fatality. So by August 22nd, in close coordination with FEMA, the state of Hawaii, and Maui County, is to fully stabilize and resource facilities on Maui to shelter up to 2,000 displaced survivors for up to 32 weeks. So that tells you guys we're going to need volunteers supporting this operation for at least 4 months, and to provide additional mass care services for up to 8,000 survivors that are not requiring sheltering for up to 8 weeks. So 2 months for just distribution of emergency supplies, feeding, other services. So it's going to be a very long operation. Establish safe staff shelters for up to 400 Red Cross responders on Maui that American Red Cross can sustain for up to 12 weeks. So that tells you that they plan on having at least 400 Red Cross workers on Maui for 3 months. So it gives you an indication of what the need is and how great that need is and for how long. Anticipate that American Red Cross service delivery from weeks 13 to 32 will be carried out by a cadre of up to 20 temporary disaster employees managing event-based volunteers. So what that means is they're going to hopefully, after that 12-week mark is up, turn it over to trained local volunteers or people from the community who come out and say, hey, we want to help Red Cross temporarily with this disaster event. That's who's going to be taking over after this 12-week mark, or that's the goal. And then achieve stabilization phase by August 25th. What that means is we have an idea and everybody that needs shelter is getting shelter. And the phase is stabilizing. It's no longer increasing. We're no longer increasing our efforts, but we're just getting to that level where we can just now maintain. We know how many people we need to feed. We know how many people we need to shelter. And now it's just figuring out how long that needs to continue before we can start, our shelter resident transition team can start transitioning people out of shelter. I am not going to go into the execution or the rest of this document because you guys can see it's very long, but I am going to share this out with you. And I at least wanted to share that initial portion of the intent with you and the timelines, so you guys have an understanding of how big of an event this is and how long it will be continuing and how long you'll probably be getting emails asking for you to go if you can. So with that, I'm going to ask you all to update your availability in Volunteer Connection if you have not already done so. If you have already done so, please go in and confirm the dates and times that you've indicated you're available. And if you're an experienced volunteer and you can go sooner than later, please let me know, or Fran Feldman or Kimberly Renner know, so that we can get you helping those who need it as soon as possible. Before I move on from the Hawaii response, are there any questions about it? Okay.
So I'm sorry, I do have a question. So are there specific skills that are needed right away, or are they waiting? Because in previous level 7s that I've been in, there's a great need for mental health further down the line, but sometimes there's an immediate, especially when bodies are being, the DNA is in and they know who the person is and things like that. So I just need to know where I can go for that information. Will it all be in Volunteer Connect?
So, and I'll just tell you right now, disaster mental health is a huge need for all of the reasons you just mentioned. And it's going to continue being a need throughout. I don't see the need for disaster mental health waning at all.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, even into long-term recovery, right? This is gonna be very, more intense than Paradise, more intense than the campfire. And there were people who needed disaster mental health support for years, right?
Right, right. I've done that, and the American Red Cross also has a counseling service that has been set up for years afterwards too.
Right.
So, and I'm not as familiar with Northern Nevada yet, but I will do my homework.
Okay, thank you. But yeah, I would say for DMH on this one, it's just going to be continuous.
Okay.
Yeah. But other urgent needs right now: reunification, sheltering, feeding, distribution of emergency supplies. Those are probably the top 4 things I would say right away. And are going to continue at least for 12 weeks. So, this is probably going to be one of those disasters where we may even see volunteers who are willing to deploy multiple times because it's such an extended period. Barb Kramer, bless her heart, huge shout out to Barb Kramer. She was in Guam. She was in Vermont, and now she's already in Hawaii as transportation manager. And, I wouldn't be surprised if she comes home and then goes back out again for another round, just because this one's going to be going on so long. That being said, it's going to change over time, right? So right now it's really chaotic. Things are really crazy. And that's why they're only asking experienced volunteers to go who have an understanding of what they might be getting into. But after things stabilize, and there's more regular patterns of what's happening, they will open up the positions to those who have less experience. And they're going to need to, because this response is going to be going on for so long. And we're in hurricane season. So there's a couple storms right now out in the ocean that are being watched. So this is just the beginning of, we're in the middle of hurricane season, but we're just getting into fire season. So we're going to have a lot of disasters to respond to. Hawaii is just going to be one that's out there for a long time. The other opportunity we have that's not a traditional disaster relief operation is to support disaster action teams in Texas. So Texas has just been inundated. The local chapters there have been responding to so many DAT calls that they actually need help. And they're willing to bring someone in for 2 weeks, put them up in a hotel just to be on call for disaster action team calls, because their teams are exhausted and worn out. So if Hawaii is something that you're not interested in doing, or you don't have the experience level, but you are a disaster action team responder, and you would either like more experience doing it because you haven't been able to go on very many calls in Northern Nevada, that's an option. Or if you're a supervisor and have experience, they're really looking for people to help lead those teams. So it really is an opportunity for anyone who's a disaster action team member that's willing to go hang out in Texas for a couple weeks. That is all I have, you guys, and we're just finishing up with 1 minute to spare. I apologize. I didn't think it was going to go this long. But does anyone have any questions before we wrap up? Okay, well, with that, you guys, I'm going to share out this video. I'll share out the agenda. Please reach out to me if you're interested in any of the opportunities we talked about, whether there's local opportunities or those deployment opportunities, or anytime you have questions about anything that you're doing in Red Cross, or if you'd like to do more in Red Cross. That's what I'm here for. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care, everybody.